Let me tell you about a mistake that quietly ends most healthcare to tech transitions before they really begin. It's not about picking the wrong role, it's not missing a skill, it's being confidently wrong about what you're actually bringing with you. And the reason it's so damaging is that it doesn't feel like a mistake, it feels like clarity. You've spent years building expertise in one of the most demanding fields in the world, and of course, that has to count for something, right? And honestly, you're right, it does, just not in the way that most people think. I've been through this 3 times now: pharmacy to software engineering to health informatics. And what I've learned is that there are two groups of people who get this wrong in completely opposite directions. The first group convinces themselves that everything transfers, that their clinical experience is basically a golden ticket into any health tech role they want, and they walk into interviews leading with their credentials and wondering why nobody seems to be as impressed as they expected. The second group goes the opposite way. They've been told so many times that tech is a different world, that they start from zero. They erase everything they came from and they rebuild their identity completely, which is exhausting, frankly, and quite unnecessary. Both of these are mistakes, and understanding why is the whole point of this video. So let's start with what actually transfer, because there's real good news here. Healthcare, as we know it, trains your brain in a way that most people coming into tech simply don't have. You've spent years making decisions under pressure with even incomplete information. You've followed complex protocols while managing real risks to real people, and you understand how systems actually behave, not just how they are supposed to behave on paper. That kind of thinking, that's not common. Like, most people entering tech roles in, say, data, product, software, analytics, they're learning that kind of reasoning on the job. But you already have it, and that's your new leverage. On top of that, there are professional behaviors that tech teams struggle with constantly, but we take them completely for granted in healthcare, like documentation discipline, working inside regulated environments, communicating across roles that speak completely different languages, like doctors, administrators, regulators, patients. We do this all the time. Tech calls that stakeholder management and runs entire workshops on it, but you, as I said, have been doing it almost every shift. And there's also domain knowledge, where we have clinical context, understanding how hospitals actually work from the inside, and knowing where the friction is for clinicians because you've lived it. And in health tech especially, that knowledge is genuinely rare and genuinely valuable. But here's where I need to slow down, because this is exactly where the mistake happens. None of that transfers automatically. And I want to be really precise about what I actually mean by that. Your seniority doesn't transfer. So if you are a senior pharmacist, or you're a charge nurse, or a department lead, you're not walking into a senior tech role because of that. And I don't mean that as an insult. That's just how skill-based systems work. You're resetting your rank, but not your intelligence. And there's a real difference. Your credentials don't transfer either. Like, not by themselves actually. Degrees and licenses, they explain who you are. But in tech, project is what prove what you can do. And if you can't point to something that you've actually built or improved or shaped, your background stays theoretical. It becomes some sort of a conversation starter, but not a closer on itself. And this is the one that is hardest for a lot of healthcare professionals to hear. The difficulty of what you've survived doesn't transfer either. Being on call, handling emergencies, grinding through impossible shifts, tech doesn't reward suffering. It rather rewards output. So you can be the most hardworking person in the room and still be invisible if there's nothing to show for it. So If that word doesn't transfer, and the domain knowledge and clinical thinking that's transfer can't just be carried over directly, then what do you actually do with any of it? This is the part that I want you to sit with for a second, because the answer completely reframes the transition. The key word here is not transfer. The word is translation. And the difference between those two things is the entire game. Transfer means that you pick something up and move it to somewhere else unchanged. So you just move the thing. That is transfer, and that is what is not happening. Translation means that you take the same knowledge and you rebuild it into a form that the new context can actually use. So you change the form, then you reuse it. Let me make that concrete. So if you deeply understand clinical workflows, that's not something you walk into a product meeting and say, I know how hospitals work. That doesn't mean anything to a tech team. But that same knowledge translated becomes the ability to write precise product requirements, to map where a workflow actually breaks down, and to design features that reduce friction for clinicians, because you can see the friction that the tech team can't see. So here, same knowledge but completely different outputs, and that output is what tech rewards. When I was transitioning, I didn't go looking for random beginner projects to build up a portfolio. I used real problems from healthcare as my training ground. The problems were real, the constraints were real, the stakes felt real as well. So I wasn't leaving healthcare behind. I was using my new technical tools to do something with what I already knew. And that made the learning feel connected instead of arbitrary. That's the bridge, not abandonment, but rather translation. One last thing before I wrap up, and I think this matters more than anything else I've said, so please pay attention. There will be moments in this transition where you feel junior, where you feel behind, where you are surrounded by people probably being way younger than you who seem to know things that you don't, and you start wondering whether you made a mistake. Please listen to this. That feeling is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that you're learning something real. Confidence in tech doesn't come from reassurance. It comes from proof. And tangible proof takes time to build deliberately. The goal isn't to convince yourself that everything transfers. The goal is to leverage what does, let go of what doesn't, and close the gaps with intentional work. Hey, if you're serious about making this transition strategically, go ahead and take the healthcare career transition readiness quiz before you make any big moves. The link is in the description. And remember this video wasn't about which career is better. Rather, it's about knowing exactly what you're carrying into the new one. And remember this important thing. Always strategy first, everything else is optional. I'll see you in the next one.